So let's talk about immigration in the UK and the two sides of the coin, okay? Because all of a sudden now everybody's grown some bollocks in the United Kingdom and is going out and taking back the country. I'll be real, I'm so glad. Anyway, this is a part 2. There's a part 1 where I started this thought, so go back and check that. And I talk about how the government is playing you and they're playing in your face. And they're just utilizing you as a pawn in their game as a UK citizen, as a white British UK citizen. Your government is playing you with this thing. But more about that in that first video. In this video, we're going to address the immigration, the two sides of the immigration thing, and how they're playing you on both sides, because it's actually hilarious. It's not hilarious. It's actually sad. But it's hilarious to me because I've always been treated as if some big, huge, confrontational, controversial person. I wasn't even born in this country. I've been trying to support people in this country for years to speak up against their government, and I get treated like this crazy person. So, let's talk immigration. And if you want to know about how I immigrated to the UK, it's in the previous video. So go and check that out, okay, if you want to know about all of that. So let's talk about immigration and the two sides of the coin. Because right now people are talking about how, we're taking back our country. All these immigrants that have come in are doing this and doing that. First of all, this is what happens when you're cowardly. This is what happens when you're cowardly and you don't speak up and you're passive aggressive with the things that you want to do. Because that's very much how the UK are. Like I've said, you don't talk about things like religion and politics, right? Which we're going to talk about religion separately, because again, the fact that we don't talk about religion and politics, those are like the two things you don't talk about in the UK, because they are considered not politically correct. It is not politically correct to discuss religion and politics. And I actually find it quite fascinating that meanwhile, a lot of the older people who are complaining right now about the problems of people immigrating here, a lot of people who are like my age and the younger generations, we're actually moving away. But a lot of them are moving away, and there's a lot of things happening around people making a lot of videos and speaking up about why they moved to Hong Kong, why they moved to Russia, why they moved to UK British nationals who've grown up in the United Kingdom for generations are leaving the country, because we're going to get to that, right? So let's talk first of all about people coming in. Okay, because I've said, you guys, I noticed, through the years, I've noticed a lot of things happening with a lot of changes. There's a lot of areas in the United Kingdom that have been completely taken over by one or another, by one particular group of people that is not UK British, to the point that I feel uncomfortable walking into these areas. And when I mean area, I mean like a whole area that is not a British person in sight in said areas has been completely taken over by a particular nationality, a particular religion. I feel uncomfortable. Listen, if I was to feel uncomfortable walking into an area where there's just all white people in the UK, all white British people, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable, because I'm in the UK. Right? But that's what freaks me out, because I'm like, how has this happened? And it actually, now I can tell you guys this from also experience, that there is an aggressive move to take over from other nationalities, to take over parts of the United Kingdom. So we'll look at it from two sides. We'll look at it from a business standpoint, first of all. Then we'll look at it from just your average day and individual standpoint in terms of the immigration. As I said to you guys before, actually, let's start here, right? As I said to you guys before, you actually get way more easily as somebody who is not a legal immigrant than if you are a legal immigrant. And I say that as a legal immigrant because a lot of allowances are made for you. So I remember when we had been in the United Kingdom for about maybe a year or two, the second time, because we came and then we left and then we came back, right? I remember, obviously, at this time, we've come on a work visa. My mum's working through her work visa. She had very specific instructions of the hours she worked. There was a lot of specificity. She couldn't just change her timetable as she wished. She had to work these very specific hours for X amount of years before she could even apply for another type of visa. So it was a whole, process, which that was done, But I remember at the same time learning that, other people, and this is where the immigration issue in the UK includes virtually everywhere that's not the United Kingdom. Because one of the biggest areas of that there was issues with immigration from at the moment that really upset people, and hence why so many people in secret voted in favour for Brexit, was actually Europeans, other Europeans, particularly Eastern Europeans, because what was happening at the time and what people were upset about is that people come from the Eastern Europe, or they'll come from places like Asia, or they'll come from places like Africa, right? All these places, they'll come in and they'll work for less, which means that because they're trying to send money back home, they're prepared to work 12 to 15 hours a day if it would cost that, because they're really here just to make money to send back to their own countries, which means that the companies have somebody to actually work for them. And this is what I'm trying to say to you guys, that You guys think that the government's upset about this. They're not upset about it. They are allowing you to be upset. They've allowed this to happen on purpose. I've watched it happen slowly but surely because it benefits them. They get to pay their workers less. They get more hard workers, because I'll say this as an immigrant, and I mean this with all due respect, but people in this country are very much less hardworking than people from other countries, because other people from other countries have something to prove. And if they've come here, they've probably come to work, or they've probably had to work hard to be here, right? I noticed that in school, across the board, I would notice in my class in general, that people didn't really take their education very seriously, which I personally had to, and I did, because there was a lot riding on it. A lot of people had worked very hard for me to have the opportunity to be there, right? So my attitude towards my education was very different, in the same way that people coming in, that's why they're working these 12 to 15 hours. That's why they're putting so many of them in one house, so they can save the maximum amount of money, whatever, because that's the situation that they're coming from. Now, there's a lot of problems with that. And that's why I'm saying that the government is playing in your face, and if you're from the United Kingdom, because they're not calling a spade, right? They're not letting you know. Like, for example, in the NHS right now, the NHS is significantly understaffed because people are no longer going to get degrees and then going to work in places like the NHS. People are getting degrees and, again, going to work abroad, going to find somewhere they can study, maybe finish their master's, PhD, get a job abroad, because it's way better to go work abroad than it is to work here, because you just can't live on a normal salary with a normal cost of living and actually even have a life and actually sustain your basic needs based on the situation. And they removed things they used to do. So previously, if you went into things like teaching and things like healthcare, you would automatically get all of your tuition fees, all of your everything to do with education paid for, right? So your tuition fees, everything paid for, and you would get a bonus payment that would just be given to you, amount of money, in a couple of thousand, up to maybe even, I don't know, I can't remember how many thousand, but at least a couple of thousand, maybe even 10,000, just goes to you as a grant, as just to give you for because they were happy that you were going into these fields. And you'd also have guaranteed jobs, this, that, and the other. They've removed a lot of that. So what's even happening in the NHS, which is the largest employer in the world, right? I've said this to you guys before, right? They talk about how they don't have money for this, that, and the other. They have all these plans. They've just changed up all the systems they've changed the systems every now and then. I know people work in healthcare, so that's why I know in detail about all this stuff, right? But they are having to spend years hiring for posts because no one is going to work there anymore. So these guys are having to actually they're having to outsource out of the country and bring people in from these other countries. They're having to help people. They're having to pay with the tax-paying money to get people to immigrate here to work in the National Health Services, the NHS, because people in this country are not working in it, because it is not conducive for people here in general. It is not attractive for anybody here in general. And anybody that is putting up with it, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a UK citizen, because they're going to see themselves as having more rights and things like that. Whereas other people, again, have come to work because they're just trying to get themselves, because for a lot of countries in the world, they still look at the UK as this kind of like, everyone still has this like, I don't know, this like awe and like idolization of the UK, right? Which I've noticed. And I find it really strange because it's really not what it looks like. But anyway, so there's that level to it, right? Where there's actually just a lot of places, a lot of companies, they're preferring these immigrants then they prefer UK nationals, right? UK citizens, right? There's one layer. That's one layer to it, right? So that's one thing that I think needs to be addressed. The other thing about illegal people coming in is, again, I feel like it's similar to what goes down in the United States. What was going down in the United States is similar to here, where if you're somebody who comes here illegally and you get looked after, and whatever government is in power wants to play whatever move, them allowing these people to come in, whoever was allowing them and whatever they want to do, this is a pool of people that they get to essentially utilize in which way that they want to, right? Because they're illegal, they want to be here. So whatever they need out of those people, they're going to get way more easily than they're going to get from the UK citizens. As I've said, I don't believe that the UK government I don't believe that the country, I don't necessarily believe that the UK, actually I don't know, because people in the UK, they don't say anything out loud. They keep everything internalized. So who knows? Everybody could be racist. I don't know. But I don't personally think that the British people are racist in general. I think that the government treats everybody the exact same, whether you're illegal, legal, immigrant, whether you've been here for the last like 200 years your family has lived here and you've always lived in the same house that's been passed through generations. I don't think they care. I think there's a small group of people. And I'm going to go into this in another detail in another video to do with my One Piece series, because I really feel like what's happening here, it's so much less about things like race, immigration, and so much more about a very small group of people trying to maintain power. Because there's another side to the coin, and this is the other side that I wanted to get to. The other side of the coin is a lot of the stuff they're doing is glaringly obviously not for the the white UK citizen anyway. Right? So I'll tell you guys what I'm talking about, and this is what reaffirms everything I've just said and what I said in the previous video. And we're going to go into religion in the next video, because that's the next layer to it, right? The next layer to that, my point is, as I said, I've been observing throughout my whole life. I was observed. When I first moved into London, I remember I lived on the street. It's in one of the most beautiful places. Well, it's one of the best places I feel like you can live in London. And I remember first moving there was a very nice community, you know what I mean, whatever. But I started to notice that certain groups of people, certain nations, we should say, were very much aggressively buying and taking over all the different shops, restaurants, and everything in my area, right? Aggressively. So even though I lived in that flat for 2 years, that flat that I lived in, this is after I left university. The first flat I lived in after I left university. Even though initially when I moved in, it was very, there was kind of diversity, but it was still very much, Britain with a bit of other people's cultures there involved. Aggressively, it very much became an area based on one particular nation. Now, I'm not getting into the nations because honestly, there's multiple of them, and the one that I'd really like to talk about is the one that will get me kicked off of the internet. So I'm just not going to talk about any of them, right? But you guys get the gist of what I'm saying here. And it was happening aggressively. So much so that one day I was working a job, right? So I was working as an event planner, right? And I had been asked to go to another part of London. And this is how aggressive that it is. But again, I'm saying all of this to say that this is what happens when the British people don't speak up and when you don't have balls. All of this political correctness was just an excuse for being cowards, right? So I was go to work at this place with this lady who runs this, who has this building. She basically took a cinema and she turned it into an event space. She put in a bar. She built it all, her and her family. She built a bar in there. They redid the stage. They redid the seating. They redid all these different rooms and everything. And they made it into a really lovely space for events. Hence why I was there, because I was hired as an event planner for this business banquet that I was event planning for. And so I would spend a lot of time going there, spending time there, with her planning, etc., etc. Lovely woman, right? And she's turned this whole cinema into the thing. Interestingly, and now this is where it gets really interesting, because this woman is black, right? Here's the thing. So she's created this community space that people around the community can hire up, they can use. And as I say, it's great when people have money that they can put into something that can become a community space. It was just like a rotting away old cinema. And now it's like a proper community venue space that you could use for all manner of different things, wedding receptions, maybe even weddings. Like I said, we were doing a business banquet there, like a pretty big business banquet, 3-course meals, celebrity guests. It was a big deal, right? So she was telling me stories about how a certain group, right, was coming in and was literally reporting on a weekly basis to the police lies, because her building was the only building and these were not UK people, right? These were not UK British white nationals. This was another nation, right? They kept coming in, trying to every week call the police and say that she is being involved with some kind of business, because essentially they wanted her building. They kept trying to buy her building and they were aggressively trying to take it from her, and she wasn't going to give it up, right? Because she'd forged a good relationship, with the community. Like I said, it was a good space people like to use for their different events, and she'd taken her time and money to turn it into something lovely. And these people were just going to take it over again, not to be used by the wider public, but again, just for this particular group of people to have all to themselves. Right? And I've seen it happen. That's exactly what I saw on my road, which this was happening in South London where she was. What I'm telling you about, I was all the way up in northeast London, right, at the time of what I'm telling you about, right? So that's one other thing. They were even planting things, like trying to say, we saw that, and again, going for the classic things that they would have been associated with black people. We saw there was knives, people with knives there. So she's having police showing up, busting in all the time, this, that, and the other. And she's a straight up woman. Nothing obviously happened of it, but she still was in a consistent battle because they'd managed to buy out everything on the road. And this is what I saw. They're buying everything out. They buy absolutely everything out, right? And then they only hire amongst themselves. They bring people from their own countries, only hire amongst themselves. And then everybody else is shut out, right? This is what I saw happening. And I never did see any people in the United Kingdom standing up for any of this. I never saw it. In fact, it was us standing up more than the British people. But then guess what? Me as a woman in the United Kingdom, because, I'll be called for standing up for stuff like this and being like, guys, why are we not doing something? This is your country. Like, why don't you care? Oh, I'm the angry black woman. Okay, great, cool. Fantastic. So let's go on to the other thing. All these buildings, and the same other thing that I noticed, that they're building all of these buildings, all of these flats, all of these whatevers, right? These big, lovely buildings and housings, right? Guess what? No one can afford them from this country. The average white British UK national could not afford to stay in any of these properties. So who are these properties being built for, you might ask? For people that they want to immigrate, right? So like when I was at university, for example, par exemple, right? When I was at university, there was a building built exactly in front of the entrance to the university. And obviously the closer the accommodation, the more expensive it was. They had like 750 different flats or something in this building, or 700, like 800 flats or something stupid, or 900, something like that, 800 or 900, somewhere around there. Tell me why, right? Once they've built it, this is big new build. Oh my gosh, this is student accommodation for the students here. There's not a single student there's only one nationality. Again, I'm not going to specify which one, but it is for sure not white. It's for sure not white. It's not. Do you know what? It wasn't anybody from the UK. I certainly couldn't afford it. No one from here. It was all one particular nationality, not the same nationality I was just talking about, but a different one, right? From another country. Only they could afford to stay in these places. The same way that these flats that are being built, even in this town, I've been complaining about them cutting all the trees down, cutting away the little history of my childhood and the childhood of the young people and the free things that people were able to do and the free places we all used to play as kids, right? They're chopping all these things down. They're building all of these flats. And again, I look at the prices. I know that the average UK British national citizen cannot afford to stay in any of these buildings. So when people are talking about, and that's all they're doing. I've seen, I was shocked yesterday because I can't remember why I went on such a long walk yesterday, but I went on a really long walk yesterday or the day before. And I was walking around, I was like, everywhere I turn, they're building up. Because where I live is not too far from London, right? They're building upwards. All of these buildings, these new builds, they're like, we're increasing the housing. And this is what the government will do. They'll come on the news, right? And they'll come on the thing and they'll go, we've in 2025, we've already started 100,000 projects all over the country to increase housing for the British citizens. But that's lies, because none of the British citizens can afford this. Do you know who's going to afford these? The rich people that they're in cahoots with around the world in other places that are going to now be buying these flats out for themselves to have. Right? These other people, they won't even be staying there. That, or the other people or they'll be buying them, and then you'll be having landlords and you'll be trying to, get yourself a place or apartments to stay and all of these things, right? And you won't be able to because you can't afford it, because no one can afford to live here unless you had already bought a house 10, 15 plus years ago and already got yourself into a job that already covered everything and already got yourself all together. And hence why a lot of people my age are actually just now immigrating. Isn't that ironic that people are shouting and screaming about the problem of immigration coming in? That's the older generations. That's like if you're like 40 plus, right? Yeah, 40 plus, right? If you're like below 40, you're thinking, this isn't conducive. I can't even live. I'm going to immigrate. All in all, people in this country are thinking that they're doing something when it's too freaking late. You should have stood up back before, when they already started having these aggressive groups. And we're going to talk about religion next, because that's another thing. Call yourself a Christian country. Well, guess what? This is looking like, and we'll talk about it in the next video, okay? And we'll talk about exactly what I have to say in the next video, right? Because I can tell you there is for sure a reigning Abrahamic religion in this country, and it for sure is now Christianity. But we're going to talk about that in the next video. But yeah, people should have been speaking up over the years. I've just gotten to old enough as an adult and understanding in the last couple of years as an adult everything that's happening in the world to actually be able to articulate all of this. So that's why I'm in shock, because I'm like, all of you people who've just been sitting here watching the very same events I've been watching, and now you want to speak up when it's all too freaking late. And that's the problem. That's the problem with being cowards. That's the problem with people who, this is what I'm trying to say to people. This is what I'm saying, that it's no use you being upset and trying to be politically correct, right? When it means that you're now allowing your country to be taken over. And yes, look, it's happened. And it's not even just that your country's being taken over. It's that the powers that be benefit from all the things that you're unhappy about. And you've given away so much of your power that getting that power back is going to be so difficult. And because you haven't even had the balls and you haven't even been speaking up, you don't even have your vocal cords aren't even built big enough to fight for yourselves. Your muscles aren't even strong enough because you ain't been fighting. You've just been taking it, lying down. And then now you want to speak up and you want to shout out and scream, right, about everything that's happening. But there's so many things that are so far down the line already, so many powers that have been given over, so much things that have been taken down and taken over, that what exactly do you expect at this point? That's what I'm trying to say to you guys. So I respectfully want to just say that, like, yeah, you should have spoken up sooner. There's nothing good. It's your country. That's what I'm saying to people. It's your country. Why do you care about upsetting other people who've come into your country when it is your own country? That's the most pathetic thing. I can't believe that this is the nation that colonized whatever the world in all these different ways. I cannot believe it, because I cannot see a single ounce of that strength here. I cannot see a single ounce of that fire in this place at all, of any type of power. It bewilders me that, like, that's what and that's why I feel like this whole pride of Britain, and having a lion on as your emblem and all this is the most waste of time ever. And like that song I've told you guys, Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves, Brits shall never, 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 ever be slaves. That song, y'all slaves to y'all government. Y'all slaves to your government. I used to think that was gangster to, like, have a song like that. Like, we'll rule Britannia rule the waves. Brits shall never, 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 never be slaves. Bro. You're slaves to your government. Because the thing is, it's not about the immigrants. Not even the illegals, not the legals, not even the whatever. You can say it's not about anything other than the fact that the powers that be are working against you. You're just another pawn in their game. And they can do that because they know you're not going to do anything. That's why they walk all over you. It's insane. Like, to me, the UK government and the UK royals as a whole, the powers that be in the UK, are some of the most heinous tyrants in the world, because they don't have to look big and scary. They don't have to make these big statements. They don't have to have these conversations between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping about the red button. They don't have to do that. They have freaked out their country so much into silence and into cowardice, right? That they can just walk all over without even having to do anything. But we're going to come back to more about that in the next video, where we talk about the religion in the United Kingdom. And how religion, we're going to come to it, because I could tell you King Charles might be the head of the Church of England. This country might consider itself Christian. But let me tell you, that's not what it's looking like. It's looking like there's another actual religion that's taken over, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. So come over to part 3, everybody, because if life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. I'm telling you guys this because I love you. I've been trying to help you people. I wasn't even born here, and I've been trying to help you people. I've been working with the kids in this country. For the entirety of my life, I've been working with kids. I've been working to try and progress and to help things out. And I'm just like, why is it that I've been the one who's consistently been looked at like the problem for trying to speak up, to support this country, to have some... I've been the one saying, where's your patriotism and all of this? I'm the one who's looked at as crazy, and I'm the one who's looked at as like combative and controversial and confrontational. But look at where we are now. And maybe had we listened before, maybe we wouldn't be here. Just saying.